All right, everybody, back for another fun football Friday with the Grump. I'm here with another special guest. He's the host of the Project Prospect podcast. He works closely with the one and only Green Bean on NFL draft analysis. He's an all-around good dude. My guest today is Dom C. Dom, of all the people I've talked to on Skype about football, I'm positive that you live the closest to me.
Grump, I appreciate the opportunity, man. And I'm looking forward to talking some ball, dude. And yeah, we for sure I can probably spit to your house from here.
Yeah. So funny, we met in Charlotte, I think, right? Is that right?
Atlanta.
Atlanta, connecting flights back
Yeah,
from Mobile.
connected flights from Mobile, exactly.
Yeah, so just saw a dude that was leaving my plane in jet skier, running to the same gate that I was, and then we got there. I think maybe like 5 minutes before boarding. So I was like, let's talk to this guy. Super smart dude, really friendly, had a lot of similar opinions, and then like lived 2 towns over than me. So we were gonna connect before the draft, and schedules just didn't align, unfortunately. But I wanted to
Yeah.
get you back. I wanted to talk football stuff with you. We didn't have a ton of time together at the airport, and it's also not the best place to talk anyway. So welcome, man.
Again, man, I'm super stoked to be here. Glad you invited me, and glad we finally made the calendars fit. You know, things get quiet for me. I mean, I got kids, and unfortunately, like a real job. Not
Same.
I don't get to just poke and prod around prospects all day long. So things are just crazy, especially in the spring with baseball and this and that and everything else. Plus, it's like really go time, just as I'm sure it is for you. Like from January until the draft in April, it's just like I feel like I'm buried here in my office, knee deep in reports and film and fighting with people on Twitter and all that good stuff, man. Defending the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, I I turn into another human, I think, between January and April, where I don't sleep a lot. Like, I'm much
Hmm.
more vampire like. I have an
Hmm.
insane schedule to get everything that I want to get done. I never get everything done. I get shittier at my real job when it's going on. You know what I mean? It's like I 100% get it, and I don't even have kids, so I don't know how you do it, man. But you do a great job, and I remember distinctly. I don't remember exactly what we talked about when we were hanging out, but I remember walking away being like, I have to talk to that guy again because he's smart dude, knows what he's talking about, good head on his shoulders. So I'm glad to
Oh
get you
man,
here. Um,
you're gonna make me blush, dude.
cut it out. So really briefly, I'm just gonna rifle through the Jets draft. Correct me
Yeah.
where I'm wrong if I say anything incorrect, because I only have so much time to check things. So, but the Jets had a really wild ride up to the draft. They had a pretty wild draft, I would say. And then obviously just a crazy offseason of all the teams around the league. Probably has to be like in the top three of craziest off seasons of all the teams. Um,
Yeah, like I mean, Aaron Rodgers will do that to any team, I guess. But it was something that was much needed, and I was so glad when it was all put to the side and behind us, and we can kind of move forward. Like everyone expected, and I don't think I'm speaking out of line. I'll speak on behalf of most Jets fans and most football fans in general. I think everyone expected it to get done. It was just like, who's gonna cross the line drawn in the sand first. It was like the ultimate like game of chicken that just got too much. I got tired of talking about Aaron Rodgers come February, but April happened. If I the deal consummated, it was quasi what I expected what it expected the cost. Everyone talked about the pick swap from 13 to 15. I don't think that I always assumed that something like that was going to happen. So in essence, you gave up a second and a first, and you moved down 2 spots in round one for this draft, which I was completely content with because I don't know how you feel about it, Grump, but uh, this is a few years now. I've been kind of involved in analysis and draft process for a few years now. This is probably one of my least favorite classes, top to bottom, that I ever studied and kind of analyzed. Just it was missing like the that big push of players. Like it was a very, very mediocre class from top to bottom. Great, there's some great players for sure, but as a whole, it was very meh, in my opinion. So,
I will say it's the strangest one I remember doing. I would say, so like there was, I did not have 32 first round prospects.
no,
I did not grade out there. So like there was a severe lack of top end talent.
correct.
And I think that there was a severe lack of like, I don't want to say day 3 talent, but like rounds 5, like the back half of round 5 and on, you could tell was just not going to be very interesting. But there was a massive clump of like round 2 prospects, round 3, round 4, all those guys. And I found that really interesting because I think those days are the most fun to watch. Like I think like the guys who are really good at wheeling and dealing rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5, like GMs, those are the ones that usually build winning rosters in the draft. So I thought it was really interesting from that perspective, but as a whole, when 100% agree with you, really whack, and especially the Giants were picking at 24 or whatever, 25, that's like no man's land for this draft. Like there was just 100 ways they could go and whatever. But getting to the Jets themselves here. So the Jets, prior to the draft, gave Elijah Moore and a 3rd round pick to the Browns, who then gave the 42nd overall pick, correct?
Correct.
That pick was then spun around and packaged with the 13th overall, the 207th overall, and a 2024 second round pick that I think we all agree will go.
Yeah, it's just as long as Aaron Rodgers plays 65% of the plays next year, God willing, I'm knocking on wood as we speak, that's going to be a first round pick.
Yeah.
So in essence, it was a second this year, a first next year, and whatever ladder ladder picks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we got back 15 this year and a 5th rounder if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember the number of
that's
it.
right. Yeah. And Aaron Rodgers. So I mean, that's quite a lot of wheeling and dealing, and it's also, like you said, I'm sure you were sick of hearing about it, but of all the high profile players, like offseason, where are they going, whatever, in the last like 10 years, probably starting with LeBron James, but like we've seen more of the player involvement, the player side of that in media, but none more so than I would say Aaron Rodgers going directly onto McAfee's show, giving all the behind the scenes details. You're right. Like it was a done deal. Everybody knew it was happening because he was revealing how little leverage Green Bay had at that point. I mean, they had to deal him somewhere.
And I think, to be honest with you, if I'm speaking openly, I think that appearance on McAfee kind of delayed the process a little more than it was, because from my understanding, and I know as much as the average Joe, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but from the guys that that do know more than me and have their ear to the street or that inside scoop, the deal was just about done, and it definitely changed after the McAfee show. I think Gutekunst got a little bit salty and realized that I don't know if it was saving face or I don't know if he was just flat out angry, but I think the deal at that point was just about consummated. I think it would have been done if it was Joe Douglas's choice. It would have been done long before then. But then he just wouldn't, like he knew that time wasn't of the essence in regards. Like, I got sick of the word leverage. I actually blocked the word leverage on Twitter. So anyone who posted anything about it, I didn't see. But like Joe Douglas the Jets really didn't have to rush to make this deal. So he kind of let Gutekunst, pit and panther and argue and, take his kickball and go home until finally we all knew it was going to happen on the draft day. Now, maybe the Jets and Joe Douglas ended up giving more than what was expected. Who's to really know outside
that's
of,
actually what I was going to ask you. You said that the deal definitely changed. I was going to ask you who it got worse for and who it got better for.
If I had to guess, if I had my druthers, I think the Jets probably either to make the deal go through, they either finally agreed to the pick swap with 13 and 15, or they took lesser of a condition on that second rounder in 2024.
Yeah.
Because I think in their eyes they probably wanted to go in it straight for a second rounder with the condition of, if he makes a Super Bowl or something like that, then it could transfer. But I think if I was a betting man, that one of those two things were the things that kind of changed in the deal. They either
Yeah, the
insisted on
conditional
13.
control makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and it does. It makes a whole lot of sense because we can all assume, injuries always happen and they're always unfortunate, but you can assume if all things being said that he's going to hit 65% without failure. So it's going to be a first round pick, and guess what? If it breaks the 13-year streak of missing the playoffs for the Jets and puts us in that upper echelon of what is an absolutely low, or towards the top of the upper echelon of what is an absolutely loaded AFC, then to me it was still all worth it.
Oh yeah. So I was gonna save this question for later, but I'm not gonna make it not segue. In your humble opinion, how long is Aaron Rodgers a Jet? In 2024, he'll be 41 with a $37.5 million cap hit and no debt out because it'll be a $58.3 million dead hit, if I'm right about that. 2025, he'll be 42 with a $56 million cap hit, but no dead hit whatsoever. I'm almost positive. 2026, same thing. 43 years old, $50 million. How long does he stay a New York Jet, in your opinion?
If I had to guess, I think we're locked in, dead set to at least 2 years.
Well, yeah,
and then after 2 years, you don't know. This contract, as it's structured now, is not going to be the contract that we see once the season starts. The Jets have been, the one thing I will say confidently about Joe Douglas and his regime that's here now in Florham Park, in One Jets Drive, is that they're straight business. You know what I mean? Joe Douglas cleaned up the mess of what was left by Mike McCagnon, his predecessor before, and stripped. I mean, we were in cap hell. They were just throwing money out, because you had to pay the tax. No one wanted to come play for the worst team in the league year after year after year. So, we had to get rid of kind of similar to what Joe Shane did last year and cleaning up the mess, stripping it down so you can build it back up. And financially, we're in much better shape for our future. And Joe Douglas has been quietly creating more space by a lot of restructures. And, some of them are no-brainers. Some of them, you always make me, kind of like, really? We're locked into so-and-so for at least another year or two. But we have plenty of room. So I don't think that the structure of Aaron Rodgers' contract as it stands now is what we're going to see. We all of a sudden have $26.8 million in cap space this year. I expect for that reworked Aaron Rodgers contract to take some of that cap hit and offer some of relief to those larger numbers down the road. Like as the contract's constituted right now, we're not going to see that as Jets fans, as NFL fans. I wouldn't be surprised if they, tear it up and redo the whole thing. So I'm going to guess 2 years minimum if things go well and his health. That's the thing. But when you bring on somebody like Aaron Rodgers, you're flipping the coin every offseason. That is he going to come back? Is he going to stay? There's, maybe you saw or definitely read about his whole Pat McAfee, fiasco. I was 90% retired. Well, great. We just took on $120 million of a guy who was 90% retired.
Well, also just generally a cryptic and weird dude. And he's like kind of flitless. Like, he doesn't seem like somebody you can count on year after. I don't think he'll ever like phone it in a season. I don't think. But as soon as the season's over, I don't know what the hell he's going to do. I mean,
I don't think anybody knows, and they'd be lying if they said he didn't. I will say this: I believe the jig that's going on now, that he has been rejuvenated and he feels alive again, and everything since he's moved on has for him, in his mind, in his eyes, has been a turn for the better. And I'll tell you this, I'm not saying this as a Jet fan. I think any football fan could agree that he's one of the best quarterbacks that you and I have probably ever seen. And I I'm all for having a really angry, revengeful Aaron Rodgers on my team right now. You know what I mean?
I would say that he probably, I don't even know if he's, I, I think there's definitely like a chip on his shoulder there. And one of
Hmm.
the things that I don't think gets talked about is, especially with quarterbacks, right? Quarterbacks are generally viewed kind of like, especially franchise quarterbacks, as like lifers with a team. It's like a big
Yeah.
deal. But like every other athlete, like sometimes, especially when a team's really good and then they go through some tough years and everything's on the quarterback's shoulders now, whereas it used to be more of a team thing and it was just easier. A change of scenery is needed a lot of time. We say it all the time with other position groups, and nobody really says it about franchise quarterbacks. But I do think
Yeah.
that the organization, the way everything ran in Green Bay, over time, there was a long period of friction there. I do think
Yeah.
that mentally, just being out of there, being somewhere new, and also being somewhere where he could just kind of demand, like, I want these two receivers here. And he's got them. I mean, whether they listen to him or they just got him and whatever, the mindset has to be just more comfortable, easier, freer. Just it has to be.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
and
I
then you
agree
get
with you wholeheartedly.
the competitive chip on the shoulder. I think for sure with him. Yeah, I think we're in for a very like 3-4 years ago version of Aaron Rodgers where he is just slinging it around the league.
Yeah. And
Um,
guess what? 3 years ago, he was the MVP.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. So what's interesting then is, the Jets have this stellar offseason. They have a pretty good offense in general, just acquiring wide receivers, getting a guaranteed quarterback. Already had a pretty good line. Already have good running backs. Going into the draft around what? So I'm gonna rifle off the picks, and
Yeah.
then we're gonna kind of just talk about ones that I thought were interesting. So in the first round with that 15th pick, they took Will McDonald from Iowa,
Hmm.
the edge player. Second round, they took Joe Tippmann, the center from Wisconsin, at 43. Then Carter Warren at 112 in round four, offensive tackle from Pitt. Israel Bonaconda, the running back from Pitt, in round 5 at 143. And then a pair of sixth round picks, Zaire Barnes, linebacker from Western Michigan, Bernard Converse, DB from LSU, and then with the seventh round pick, Zach Kuntz from Old Dominion, the tight end.
Yep.
So what's really interesting there for me is I want to know your thoughts on Will McDonald. Like, obviously, he's one of the top edge guys in this class. He fell right in that, like, is he a first round prospect? For me, he was
Hmm.
kind of like on the lower end. 15 by draft value and in this class, I didn't think was a ludicrous spot to take him at all. But also, I just don't think he's 15th overall worthy. And I don't know if you'll agree with me on that or not, but I don't think he's your 1 or 2 edge rusher, right? He's going to be like probably rotational depth for the first year.
Yeah. Well, Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich, our defensive coordinator, have really set home the idea, and they've been vocal about this, and they've caught a lot of flack from the fans, from Jets Twitter, from the media, so on and so forth. Is their mindset is, you're never going to see a guy, even somebody, our best defensive lineman, arguably, I think it goes without argue, is Quinnen Williams, right? And Quinnen Williams still only, their ideal snap percentage is about 60 to 65% for their top ends. They want to rotate these guys through. They want nine. Their mindset is, we have fresh bodies on the field, very scheme specific, and we keep everyone fresh on that thing, because that defense is, it doesn't work if you're not getting pressure up front with your front four. I mean, it goes back the days when Saleh was in San Francisco, and that defensive line that they had, and same system when that Seattle, a variation of the system that Seattle runs, the same thing. Robert Saleh was a linebacker coach in Seattle when his whole 3 deep kind of scheme came out of. So keeping pressure, getting pressure with that front four is vital. So their mindset is they're going to rotate guys through. Last year it was crazy because they came out in preseason, and Jeff Ulbrich and Robert Saleh both said, "Listen, none of our defensive linemen are going to see, or our ideal is to have our top guys see 50 to 60%." Their mindset is, they'd rather have a fresh Quinnen Williams or a fresh Carl Lawson for 50 or 60% of the time than run into them being tired or dogging it at 80 or 90%. And you can make the argument, like I get what they're trying to do, but as a fan, you want to see your best guys on the field the whole time. So that being said, I think Will McDonald will see the field.
Oh yeah,
I absolutely think he will see the field.
It feels like situational pass rusher, right?
I think this year that's exactly what he's going to be. He's going to be, he's going to be their wide nine rush guy that backs up Carl Lawson. He'll see the field as well alongside Carl Lawson in certain reps and so on and so forth. But they have a very strong defensive line room with Carl Lawson coming back now year 2 off of that Achilles injury.
Right.
So last year he was good, but he still wasn't there yet. So we're hoping to see even more from Carl Lawson. John Franklin Myers is a guy who, and John Franklin Myers and Jermaine Johnson and Michael Clemens, for that matter, are all guys who are all, strong side, run stuffers first, get at the passer second, because then they have the Carl Lawsons. Then they have the Bryce Huff, who per snap was the most effective rusher in pure pass sets in the NFL last year. But again, he was used in situational thing. He only saw the field 25% of the time. So I think that, we're going to see Will McDonald on the field, but I don't think it's going to be enough for some fans who think, oh, he's a first round pick, he should see the field all the time. No, he's going to be part of a heavy rotation, and probably used specifically, in long situations, third down, so on and so forth, where we're gonna, where we need to get at the quarterback, because that's what he does best, man. So he's got that freaky combination of length, speed, and athleticism that Joe Douglas covets. He's coveted with almost every draft pick that he's made, since he's been in charge. The one thing you can assure is that if it's a Joe Douglas pick, they're going to have a super high RAS score, and that's what McDonald offers. So he's going to see the field. It'll probably only be probably 20-25% of the time this year. But it didn't matter if he went 15, if he went 115, or if he went number 1 overall. That percentage is probably going to be the same. There's that rotation on that defensive line of just moving guys in and out and keeping them fresh is something that it's a mantra that Joe Douglas that Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich are dedicated to. So,
well, okay, so that all makes sense. That's kind of what I thought too, and I already said this is not a bad pick, because I didn't think that it was just this draft class is weird. But I guess this is a smart pick. Everything you said makes sense. I fully understand that. That sounds right. That looks like what the Jets do. And I think that when you put him in those situations, that's when he is most effective. I mean, like, that's where it's like his effectiveness per snap is going to be like 85% and up. So,
oh yeah,
I certainly think it's a brilliant idea. I think it works exactly with what the Jets are trying to do. I think it's the right pick. But that being said, a first round pick in the top 15 being used situationally year 1 sounds suboptimal, even though this makes sense. My question to you is, was there somebody else that you were waiting for, hoping for, pounding the table for at 15? Because it is kind of strange to use your first round pick on a situational player, right?
Well,
in a
yes
vacuum.
No, absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. So let me answer the question first. Let me answer that part of the question first. I don't necessarily think, and I'm not saying this because Will McDonald was the Jets pick first overall, but even when we had 13, it didn't matter. I was one who said, listen, there's a chance that this guy comes in and he's not the starter. You know what I mean? Now, that's a testament to good team building, right? Because 2 years
agree.
2 years ago, 2 years ago, we were plucking guys. Literally 2 years ago, we drafted, I think, 4 or 5 starters. Bryce Hall, the cornerback from Virginia, 5th round pick, came in, was a starter, and is a starter for 2 years before, before we signed DJ Reed and drafted Sauce Gardner, so on and so forth, and he lost that job. But that team, to compare it to this team, like I was of the mindset that the first round pick doesn't have to come in and start. Ideally, that's what you want. That's what you would like to see. But again, in an ideal situation, I think is not what this draft class offered, especially up there. Now I will, full disclosure, I'm not going to sit here and BS you. Will McDonald was not the name I was expecting. It's a prospect that I absolutely liked. I did not have a first round grade on him. I only had 17 first round grades, but he was in that he was in that next tier. He was in that tier with guys, not to divert the show, but just so to give you kind of a mindset. Like, I had him in that same tier with BJ Ojulari. I had him in that same tier with what's his? Oh my God, why am I drawing blank? Felix Anaduke Uzoma, who Kansas City took in the first round. In that in that pass rusher, in that edge, I had Timmy Adebaware in that tier. I had him ranked higher than Will McDonald. He didn't go to the fourth round, which was
everybody was confused about that.
Yeah. So Will McDonald was not the name I was expecting. Now, part of that is just the world that we live in now. I mean, I don't know about you, Grump. I'm sure that's the case. I co-hosted a show on Green Bean's channel called the Monday Night Mock. So, every Monday night from when the season ended until draft day, we did mock drafts. And, I did a gazillion different YouTube shows and podcasts where we did mock drafts and so on and so forth. And just, there was not one situation, not one iota where I ever considered or saw or heard the Jets taking edge at 15. I think everyone was dead set on the offensive tackle, which I wasn't. Personally, I will say that. My guy was who I expected, just because I thought, like I said, knowing the athleticism that Joe Douglas covets in his draft picks, I thought Kalijah Kancey would be a good fit, and
Gotcha.
you'd figure out a way to get him and Q Williams on the field and just cause havoc up the middle. So he was the guy I was low key really hoping for, and he's the guy that I thought. My gut told me that it was probably going to be an offensive tackle. My heart really wanted Kalijah Kancey, and nowhere in the realm of first round possibilities did I expect edge. So I was as shocked as everyone else. But then once all that dust settles and you get back to, all right, well, listen, I watched plenty of film on this guy. I scouted him. I saw him live in Mobile. You dig a little deeper and you realize that, good teams draft premium positions and keep that pipeline going. And that's exactly what Joe Douglas is trying to build. He's trying to develop a team that has a pipeline that can continue that can have continued constant success, a la Baltimore, a la all these other teams that continue to
Philly.
replenish. Philadelphia, New England, I hate to say it, that's have historically just been able to replenish and
rather than have to tear down and rebuild.
That's right. Like, and look where these guys come from, man. I mean, San Francisco 4 years ago, they spent 3 first round picks on defensive linemen, 2 on defensive ends.
Saleh was there.
Saleh was there. Exactly. So there was something, so it all kind of made sense to it. And really, Will McDonald is he's an ideal fit for what Jeff Ulbrich and Robert Saleh want to do on defense. Go ahead.
You mentioned that you saw him in Mobile. We both did. That's the only draft pick that the Jets took of Senior Bowl guys.
Correct.
What was your thought on that? Just in general, the fact that there was not that many Senior Bowl guys taken.
Well, you know what? I got to be honest with you. I was pretty sure. I knew that, and this was not insider knowledge. It was a little bit of insider knowledge and more common sense, and more that they were very upfront. That I knew that they were honing in on the centers, and they had done extensive work on both Joe Tippmann and John Michael Schmitz. And
that question's coming. Don't worry.
Yeah. They, like I expected, I really did. I didn't. Let me rephrase that. I thought picking at 43, I thought we were going to miss the boat on that. So my mind had said, "All right, listen, this is my mind. This was the Dom C draft plan." I said we're going to bypass the tackles because there was really only, I was a Skoronski truther, and he was the guy that I wanted and I thought would fit best. I would have been completely fine with Paris Johnson, although I figured he was going to go earlier. And I was not on the Broderick Jones train. I would have been okay, but he wasn't my favorite prospect. I didn't, he wasn't a guy that like I kind of yearned for. So I wanted to really fix that interior, bring in another pass rusher from the middle, another defensive tackle, which was a hole going into the draft. It was a big glaring hole. So my mindset was, all right, we're going to take defensive tackle in the first round. By the time we pick in the second, all the centers, the top two at least are going to be off the board. So I was kind of focusing elsewhere. I was talking. That's when I thought maybe an edge could come into play. That's when we talked about linebacker or wide receivers. Who's in that realm? Because I agree with you. I agree with your sentiment that was the meat and potatoes of the draft. I thought from like 30 to about 100 was like where the strength of that draft lived. So I said, okay, we're still going to get a good player, but maybe we'll take the second tier tackle, someone like it doesn't matter. Whatever tackle you have, Blake Freeland or whomever you had in that second tier, Wanya Morris, maybe we'll secure our tackle of the future there, and then we'll address center in the third or fourth round because you could still find a Ricky Stromberg or
Right.
a Luke Whippler or something like that later on, who were both very good scheme fits for what we're doing. I didn't expect either of them. I figured the Giants were going to take one. I had them pegged to take one late in the first.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had to run that gamut of Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Houston, all who had big holes at center. So I didn't expect them to get through those guys at the beginning of the second. So, so they were there. They were both there. That was, to me, that was crazy. So to your long-winded way around your Senior Bowl question is, I thought John Michael Schmitz was going to be the pick. So I figured that they had done extensive work, and I know that they met with him a lot, and they had privates with him, and so on and so forth. I just thought that he was the guy.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that John Michael Schmitz was at the Senior Bowl. You even talked to him.
Yeah,
I did extensive work on him. Like you said, the Giants had a severe center problem. I have been screaming about it for longer than I've had a podcast. I mean, it was a problem, and it reached a critical mass where it was just like, well, they're screwed. So they need one now, and this is the year to get one. I had John Michael Schmitz as my top-rated center. Joe Tippmann I had as my fifth-rated center. So Joe Tippmann going some 14 picks before John Michael Schmitz. Do you have any thoughts, concerns? Did you feel that way? Did you think they were closer? Because I know that a lot of people had Tippmann way higher than I did, which is totally fine. But
so I didn't have him. I had John Michael Schmitz was my number one overall interior offensive lineman. Between all the guards and the centers.
Over Torrance?
Over Torrance, yes.
Okay.
I was not very high on Osiris Torrance. He was, well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, as an interior offensive line, I think I had him maybe around fifth or sixth, without pulling up my draft board here now. But he wasn't at the top. John Michael Schmitz was at the top of my list. I thought that, just his overall game was there was nothing that was, there was nothing he was really missing. You know what I mean? I thought that he anchored very good against the pass, and I saw it on film, and then you got to see it live in Mobile, and it was that exciting. And then there was the play in Mobile, which is, still fresh in my mind. Maybe you saw it, maybe you remember it, maybe you don't. But Tajay Spears busted a little counter play. It was nothing. It was in their 11 v 11s, and it was a little counter play where John Michael Schmitz kind of just steps down and down blocks and just demolishes the defensive lineman. I don't remember who it was. He then moves up into the second level and just runs through the linebacker, Deion Henley was the no, maybe it wasn't downhill. I don't remember who the linebacker was, but he literally just put his nose down and run through, and Tajay Spears runs by him, and then you see John Michael Schmitz almost step for step with Tajay Spears and picks off the safety. I said, man, this guy's a freaking stud. I said, I got to have him on my team.
Oh, I mean, we caught it. I had Stoney Keeley, who's a Titans fan, NFL draft dude.
Yeah. I watched the episode.
Yeah. So we talked Tajay Spears, and just in general, that was one of those plays where it's like you're watching something else and you hear the entire stadium react, and you're like, what the hell's going on? Yeah, and that was one that I actually did catch.
Yeah. So and the oohs and the ahs, I think everyone was watching Tajay Spears break this.
Right.
And my oohs and ahs were like, I can't believe I just watched, a 6'4", 320-pound center just demolish three guys and keep up step for step.
With a very exciting running back, too.
Yes. So, so John Michael Schmitz was my number one center. He was my number one overall offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman. I then had Steve Avila as my second.
Oh, okay,
I really liked him. And then I had Joe Tippmann. And then I had Andrew Voorhees, and then I had before he got hurt, and then I had Osiris Torrance and some of the others. So Tippmann wasn't that far off.
Okay.
So the difference for me, like I said, I think Tippmann is much more. I think Tippmann is more athletic. I think
yes.
What you're gonna get in John Michael Schmitz, and both of these guys. I'm not saying I like one better than the other. I just told you I had Schmitz ranked higher. And this isn't a Jets-Giants thing. I think they're both going to be phenomenal players for a long time in New York. All right. I think that the floor was a little bit higher right off the get-go. You got a higher floor in Schmitz and maybe a little bit of a lower ceiling. I think there's a possibility that the floor could be lower for Tippmann, but I think there's a possibility that his ceiling's a little bit higher. He's a little bit more athletic. They're both as physical as they could be. And what I liked about Tippmann more than Schmitz was how he moved in space.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
He's just at 6'6", he's a mover. He's physical. He's a dog and all that stuff. But he's smart with his body. He's smart with his angles. He takes the right steps. His hand usage is excellent. What he can do in the second level, to me, he's a better fit. So I understand why what the Jets saw in him. I understand as a scheme how he would fit better than some people might think John Michael Schmitz would fit. I mean, I guess gun to my head, I would say, Tippmann's the center you want for the outside zone scheme, and Schmitz is the guy I want for your gap duo power schemes. I don't know what the Giants run. I'm just saying, to my head, that's how I would say it.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it right there. A lot of pin and pull too, which I think he can pull really well. He can get to the second level. JMS I'm talking about. Get to the second level well. So yeah, perfect scheme fit. I just thought that was interesting. Staying on the offensive line, the Jets took. You mentioned tackle was a huge issue. They took Carter Warren from Pitt. I don't know shit about him. I don't know. I didn't even know his name come draft night. So what do you know?
So I had done a lot of work on Carter Warren, actually, as a matter of fact. Doing it because I was trying when I was watching film on running backs. Obviously, I saw him blocking for Abanaconda all the time. And then he had there was a lot of hype about him. He's a local kid. He's from Patterson. I think he went to Patterson Eastside, if I'm not mistaken.
That always gets the fans going. It's always
fun. So he's a hometown kid. You got to know him. I got to kind of root for him a little bit because he's also a Jets fan. That's always fun, right?
Always a plus.
Always a plus. But he battled an injury last year, so he only played 3 games. Now Carter Warren in 2022 had a chance to come out. He was eligible to come out. He decided to go back to school. He could have came out with Kenny Pickett and so on and so forth, and he would have been, they said he probably would have been, a top 100 pick. So he decided to, he bet against himself, and I don't hate him for that. Like he said, I can do better. A healthy Carter Warren, I really believe would have heard his name, called in the first 2 rounds.
What was the nature of his injury?
It was a back injury.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a bad. I don't know exactly what he did, but I'm sorry. No, I apologize. It was a knee injury. It was a torn meniscus. It wasn't just like a little. I think it was completely torn. So,
So wait. Before you go on with him, does that concern you coming off of, do you have any like Mekhi Becton PTSD or anything like that?
no, no. I will say this. Everyone was hammering the table like you have to draft the tackle, you have to draft the tackle, you have to draft the tackle. Um, I said the whole time that, yeah, listen, tackle depth again. I'm of the belief for at some point you have to draft, you have to replenish premium positions, and the good GMs will choose those guys at those premium positions over drafting for a need per se. I think that's what really makes or breaks a good GM. So tackle was something that we wanted to do because it was such a question mark coming in this year. Dwayne Brown, we knew was going to be, his contract kind of precludes us being rid of him. On top of that, he's absolutely adored by our coaching staff, and is a leader in the locker room. So I knew he was going to be back on the team. Mekhi Becton coming back, you still don't know what you're going to get from Mekhi Becton. I mean, that's the reality.
Right.
Talent is immense, but the best ability is availability. We all know that, and he hasn't played in 2 years.
Right.
So it's a big question mark. Anything you get from him is gravy. And then you had some other pieces on the team. We drafted Max Mitchell out of Louisiana last year in the 4th round, who was really our developmental guy and kind of was thrown into the fire.
Think a good prospect. I believe he was a Senior Bowl guy, right?
2 years ago he was. Yeah, and what's funny was I was not very high in my scouting of Max Mitchell, and that of all the draft picks that the Jets have made in the Joe Douglas regime, that one shocked me the most. Well, I shouldn't say that. Mekhi Becton shocked me the most because I swore it was going to be Tristan Wirfs, but I wish it was. Nonetheless, I digress. That pick shocked me because Max Mitchell doesn't fit the bill of a true prospect, a college prospect coming out that Joe Douglas targets, because his RAS score was awful. Very, very low compared. Most of the Jets draft guys are nines and above, and I think his was somewhere in the 4s. Like, he tested out poorly at the Senior Bowl. He didn't perform well. And when they drafted him, it was a guy who I expected, okay, he's a developmental guy. He needed to put some weight on him. He was another guy, great mover in space. I assumed that they were going to put some weight on him and probably move him inside.
That's
he was
going
to
be
he was going to be your swing guy in the middle. But there he is, thrust into action. Unfortunately, George Fant never really recovered from his knee last year. We all know what happened with Mekhi Becton. So injury after injury after injury, and we throw our rookie to the fire, and he held his own. He wasn't great. I'm not going to say he's the next coming of Trent Williams, but for a guy who no one really expected to play, he didn't do terrible. He had his moments, which were awful. Just like any rookie's, going to have, But all in all, before he had the blood clotting issue, and missed the rest of the season, you saw something there,
So the Giants hosted him as well. Yadni Kajust came in,
yes,
and signed with the Jets. What, last night?
Yeah, last night.
Yeah, I think it was like
that minimum. Very
9 p.m. So I'm assuming then you have Carter Warren above Max Mitchell on the depth chart, behind Becton and Dwayne Brown. Where does Kajust factor in with that off the top of your head? I mean, clearly he hasn't taken a single snap. I probably hasn't even worn a Jets uniform yet, has he?
No. My guess is that I don't even know if Kajust has taken his physical yet. I know he wasn't at practicing today at OTAs.
Okay.
But my guess.
By the way, this is airing on Friday, so just for it's Wednesday as we're talking.
Okay. But my guess is there's no guarantee that he's going to make the final 53.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So then you have it as it's Becton, Brown, Warren, Mitchell. Then, right?
I think those are your top 4 tackles going into the season, and there's also the wild card, man. Like, God forbid, we know that we have the availability of Elijah Vera Tucker can bounce outside in a pinch,
I guess
just as he
so.
did
Yeah.
last year, and he did it
And you can move McGovern
exceptionally well.
over it.
McGovern can play. McGovern has guard center flexibility. Tippmann has guard and center
Right.
flexibility. They
And Schweitzer too.
they exactly. Wes Schweitzer that they got from Washington has guard and center flexibility. So they have a lot of moving parts, and the mantra of this offseason so far for the offensive line, that's coming out of Florham Park, Robert Saleh is saying that the best five are going to play. He doesn't care who they are. He doesn't care at what position. He said the best five are going to play. Now, if you're asking me what the best five are, my best five is Dwayne Brown at left tackle, Laken Tomlinson at left guard, Joe Tippmann at center, Elijah Vera Tucker at right guard, and Mekhi Becton at right tackle.
So you're just taking the whole line and spinning it.
No, not necessarily. Because Elijah Vera Tucker, as a rookie, played left guard.
Right.
When we signed Laken Tomlinson last year, Elijah Vera Tucker moved over to right guard. Laken Tomlinson was a left tackle.
Okay.
So the only thing that I'm really flipping is I think that they're going to side with the security and experience that Dwayne Brown offers on Aaron Rodgers' blind side than the upside. Plus the fact that Becton and Elijah Vera Tucker, that 1 year that they were on the field together, were just absolutely dominant. And I could see them wanting to put together the Smash Brothers again on the right side. I just think that I think Dwayne Brown's going to beat out Mekhi Becton for the left tackle spot. And Mekhi Becton has experience playing right tackle. He did it at Louisville for 2 years. So I know it's not very he's not super, super keen on it. At least he's being vocal about that because he thinks that's how he hurt his knee.
Okay.
Being on the right side, practicing on the right side.
You hear that from linemen a lot.
Yeah. But listen, I don't think he's going to have a choice. Listen, I could be wrong, and I hope I am. I hope he comes in. He looks great. I hope he kicks ass in camp, and if he wins the left tackle job, so be it.
Yeah. Well, but you're right, though. It's not up to him, and he certainly hasn't earned anything yet. But sticking with the Pitt picks, and this is going to be my last Jets-specific question.
But Warren is a guy. I'm sorry?
No, sorry.
Did I lose you?
Yeah, for a brief minute there. Keep going. What you're telling me about Warren. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say Carter Warren. You asked, he didn't do any work on him. So he's another guy, very, very athletic, very fluid feet, exceptional in the pass. Still a work in progress, at least of, last year was so limited because of his knee, but the film that you did see last year or even in 2022 that I saw, still a work in progress at the point of attack, like that pure run blocking isn't there. Listen, this might be a high kind of praise to him, but if you think Charles Cross coming out of Ole Miss 2 years ago, you know how they said, hey, he's going to be able to handle the pass sets. He's, but you don't know what he's going to do against the run.
Yeah.
That's Carter Warren to a T.
Okay.
Listen, I hope he plays as well as Charles Cross did as a rookie, but same concept is that, I'm not worried about him, his footwork is good, his hand placement's good. Strong punch, can, gets into his kicks, his kick step's good, can get into his set, doesn't get beat to the inside. Fast enough to get the speed rushers or the wide nine guys on the outside. So against the pass, I'm not necessarily concerned. He definitely some room to grow in regards to how he blocks in the run game at the point of attack. He needs to put a little bit more functional strength on, I think. So he's going to have a year to do that.
But with a fourth-round tackle, that's
it.
Yeah, that's
you're exactly that. No.
Sticking with Pitt, this is going to be my last Jets-centric question here.
Okay.
Israel Abanikanda, what do you think his chances are of having an impactful spot on the roster? Because he's going to be behind Breece Hall. He's going to be behind Michael Carter. I think just having watched him, having done my own work on him, I don't think he's going to surpass either of those two guys. But Abanikanda, for all the work that I did, I thought he has great speed, especially a good burst through the crease. I think he does a really good job of getting skinny to get through those creases when they're not really there. He's a pretty damn good receiver out of the backfield. He doesn't run great routes, but he's got really smooth hands. He knows how to turn his body when making the catch as well, where it's very fluid. That catch to upfield movement is very good with him. But as a blocker, he doesn't really offer anything. And most importantly, I think he does not really make people miss, other than his speed. And behind the line of scrimmage, I would even say he's just flat bad. So where does that put? I mean, for me, that's like a developmental running back, sort of. That's never going to be anything more than rotational, but could be really good on kickoffs. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's good. I'm glad you said that, because Abanaconda, I think listen, we don't know what Breece Hall is going to offer this year. He's 8 months removed from an ACL tear. As a Giants fan, when Saquon tore his, you could say, oh, he looks great, or he's doing all these stuff in camp and in practice and so forth.
He's still going to be really good, but he won't be him.
That's right. So to me, I'm not ready to just say Breece Hall's the Breece Hall we saw the first 7 weeks of last year. So we don't know what he's going to be. Okay, I don't know what he's going to offer the first half of the season. That's the reality. I hope to God he's back to normal, but. I was talking, and I don't think this is going to be the case, but I was talking, put him on the pup, because I think, especially with the Abanikanda, and I still wouldn't be surprised. I'm not trying to veer off too far, but once these post-June 1st cuts happen, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets go sniffing around at either somebody who's let go, or some of these guys that are still available, to fill the run back, if Breece isn't going to be full go by the season start. But Abanikanda has a lot of the same traits that all of the Joe Douglas or West Coast outside zone running backs have. All right. They're one cut and go guys. Now, they're one cut and go guys that play with phenomenal contact balance. Like, that's the one thing I saw about Izzy. Michael Carter is probably the best on the team. Breece Hall does it as well. Is that you're rarely going to stop them on first contact, and if you do, they're always gaining yards, always falling forward. The contact, they're always moving forward. But what Izzy Abanikanda can offer is that second and third gear that that the rest of the running backs don't have. Now, Breece Hall's a separate animal, and I'm not going to.
I was going to say, I was wondering where you're going with that.
No, Breece Hall has, he's special in that sense that he's got, he's one of the few guys. I think Saquon, I think Breece Hall, obviously prime Derrick Henry. I don't know if he's still there, but there's a few running backs that can wear that hat of bell cow. Najee Harris in Pittsburgh. I think Breece Hall could be a bell cow running back where he's a true 3-down running back, but in this day and age, no offense really has that anymore. I mean,
nobody relies on it for sure.
No one relies.
If it does come around, people want it, but you just don't account for it.
Yeah, but Izzy Abanikanda has what he offers is the chance to break a play every time he touches the ball. I agreed with your assessment wholeheartedly. Like, he doesn't break tackles. I think he actually was probably in the bottom 20% of all college football running backs, over 100 carries in forced missed tackles. So that's not his MO. His MO is you give him a seam, he plants that foot, and he gets north, and he gets vertical, and he gets vertical. You just hope that he's going to be a guy that grinds out for a season, is going to be at 4.5, 5 yards per carry, because for every one that, he gets negative yardage or caught one, he's going to bust one for 10 or 20, you know what I mean? And it's that one, it's a guy like him that all he needs is that one play to really change the game. But on top of that, like you said, he's going to offer something immediately in kick return and punt return. And, so is Bam Knight, our undrafted free agent from North Carolina State last year. The same thing. Same guy as Abanikanda, except he runs a 4.5 and Abanikanda runs a 4.35. But one cut and go, very physical. Both can really, really need some reps and some time to learn pass protection. But that's why you have Michael Carter. You know, that for a little guy, he's not afraid to put his nose in there. He's a very Michael Carter's a very willing blocker. You know, he's just sometimes not that great at it. The other two guys, I don't expect them to see the field too much on those third down spots when they're going to be asked to be in pass pro. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see Abanikanda once every 3 series get his chance to get the ball in his hands and really make something happen, because that's what he can do.
Okay, all right. I'm I only last night, as I was typing up just like a general guide for this, only last night did it occur to me that he might be really effective on kicks and punts. So for you to agree with me and be like, yeah, immediately, I'm like, all right, I know what I'm fucking talking about right there.
Yeah, well, I think that listen, when they let go of Braxton Berrios, he needed to put somebody back there.
That's
right?
true. I didn't even account for that when I said that. So
yeah,
how about
yeah.
that?
So I mean listen, I think that the last, well, at least rounds 5 and 6, the 2 6-round picks, I think their main focus is going to be what they can offer on specials, because Jarek Bernard-Converse, the defensive back at LSU, is another guy who can return punts and so on and so forth. Zaire Barnes, our other first 6-round pick, I'd be lying if I told you I watched or knew anything about him, because I didn't, and I don't. I didn't get much Western Michigan film. I don't know about you.
He did. I mean, not that they don't churn out NFL talent like pretty much annually, but it's just, unless there's a name attached to it, especially with all the guys I try to cover, it's just, I'm probably not going to get to Western Michigan, you know?
Yeah, there's one number that sticks out with Zaire Barnes, 9.8 RAS.
Oof.
That's it. I mean, those are the guys.
I mean, for a 6-round running linebacker, that's kind of
yeah, a depth piece of special teams guys. Zach Kuntz, 9.99 RAS. You know, the absolute best. I think 8th best overall ever, as long as they've been tracking or counting it. I don't expect them to see the field, but he's got that athletic upside. You throw darts at athletes, I guess, at the end of the round. So,
so my last question to you, this is probably premature, but already, who besides Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. are you most excited to do 2024 draft work on? If you listen to my Stoney interview, you already know my answer is Blake Corum from Michigan.
Yeah,
I was upset that he was too young to come out this year.
Well, I started doing some. You know what? I had some downtime, so I started to download some college tapes, some all 22 that I can get my hands on. Mm-hmm. So I'm about 2 games into DJ. The quarterback from Clemson, now he's in Oregon. I can't say his last name. Ula, you know the guy I'm talking about. Uligiwale.
I know who you're talking about. I'm not going to say it any better than you, though.
Yeah. And I kind of wanted to vomit. Wasn't really my favorite. So I think the guy, and not for Jet's sake, just for my own.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Just for your own sake. Yeah.
I really am looking forward into diving into Drake May, I think. Yeah.
All right. Now you're on record having said that, so
I'm looking for I like the quarterbacks, man. I like the scout. I like to dig into those guys. So
it's always fun too, especially it's cool to. I am not going to be the one to say to you right now that I was like, I could have told you Brock Purdy would have been good. That's not true. But I will say, having done the Iowa State work that I did, I watched him. I was like, this guy, if he gets a shot, could do something. I did not expect him to fall all the way to Mr. Irrelevant, and I certainly didn't expect him to have playoff performances and shit like that. That's not what I'm saying. But there was, I had his name jotted down because he was like an all Big 12 quarterback mention. I was like, I have to at least check him out. He's like, he's accurate. He knows what he's doing. He's a pretty good game manager. I could see him making some noise. And that's why I like quarterbacks, because it's usually those guys that they just need a shot. You know what I mean? They'll surprise you. Maybe they're not starting quality, but if you get a backup out of a 5th-round pick, holy shit, dude, that's really doing draft work.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what that's why I did a lot of work on those later guys, because, again, I figured if the Jets were going to take a quarterback, it would be like a 6th or 7th round pick.
Right.
So like
and there were a lot taken this year with Max doesn't going way too early.
There's tons of guys that went way too early for but that just shows the difference between like my scouting eye and my board as opposed to, the NFL's draft guys.
Well, yes, no, I think it also speaks to the draft class just generally not being very good because we saw kickers and punters going early too.
Yeah, 3rd round. San Francisco took a kicker in the 3rd round. I think they took Moody, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bad draft class. It just is what it is.
Listen, overall, there was a bad draft class. I think there were some teams out there that had really good drafts. Like I really, really liked the Giants draft.
Me too.
I was not. I'll go on record. I've already been on record. Told you that how high I was on John Michael Schmitz. Mm-hmm. I was not a Jalen Hyatt guy. But
no, I mean, me either. But at the 3rd round,
but I think the value that you got him was just ridiculous.
You can't say no to it.
Value. Yeah. Oh my God, I almost called him Julius Brents.
Deontay Banks.
Deontay Banks, same difference, same tall, lanky, same long, tall, lanky quarterback. But Deontay Banks was again at 20 something was a great steal. Now, and oh my God, who else am I missing? They had Schmitz, they had Jalen Hyatt. Eric Gray, that's the one we were chatting about. Mm-hmm. Again, he's not a guy that I think is going to, he's not going to be the second coming of Saquon Barkley. If Saquon Barkley walks after this year, I don't think Eric Gray walks in there.
He's not filling those shoes, but I don't think anybody's filling those shoes. I think they're just doing it by committee after Barkley.
Yeah, no, but that's it. And in this day and age, he can be a fair part of a rotation. I thought he was I really liked his film.
Yeah, me too.
I really, really liked his film, and for where he went in the 5th or 6th round, like, who else? You needed a backup. You needed a backup running back to Saquon, right?
I mean, they brought back Breda, and he did do some stuff in a limited capacity last year. But like, first of all, I knew with Joe Shane coming from Buffalo, they were going to take a running back. They take one every year in Buffalo, just about in the middle rounds. You're preparing. Breda was never going to be more than they signed him for 1 year. They brought him back for another year. It's never going to be a long-term thing. Barkley's not a long-term thing. And then the other guy, Gary Brightwell, is a previous regime guy that everybody regarded as a special teams pick in the 6th round. So, I mean, I knew a running back of some caliber was coming. That's why I did work on Abanaconda. But I actually like the fact that they got Gray over Abanaconda.
Yeah. Listen, I was shocked. I had Abanaconda with a 3rd round grade. I thought, where I thought he would fit very, very well? I knew he was going to be an outside zone fit because that's just his running style. I thought Miami would be a perfect fit for him. I mean, as much as they covet speed, you get that guy in there. I mean, he is pretty much like a younger Raheem Mostert.
Oh, okay.
So I thought he was, be a good fit. I actually in my last final 3-round mock that I did, I had him going to Miami in the 2nd round. I was shocked that when Abanaconda lasted the 5th round, but again, I can't say it enough. Like, mock drafts sometimes are so deceiving. You think and you never really know.
Yeah.
So
Dom, listen to me. The Giants and Jets play Week 8. I'd love to talk to you again this year.
Oh, absolutely.
I will definitely be in touch with you about draft stuff coming up. Mobile guys, I'll probably hit you up in DMs and be like, "What do you think of this guy? I'm watching him. I'm not sure." So expect that. But I'd love to have you back. You're a great dude. You're a smart dude. You know what you're talking about. Probably smarter than me.
I don't know about that, but yeah. Listen, let's reciprocate this because I'm on my podcast. Before what I'm doing now is, while it's kind of like a lull, if you start pumping out too much content on 24 prospects, some people turn you out. So I'm bringing on a lot of the content creators from some of our opponents. So I'd love to have you on when, to do a little preview Jets Giants.
Hell yeah, man. I am always game for that shit.
We'll
figure something out. Definitely.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely, Grump. It's been a pleasure, man.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us. For everybody else, remember to follow me on Twitter for more of my shit if you like my shit. Dom, I have your Twitter handle literally on the screen. Go ahead and shout out where they can find all your stuff.
You can find me on Twitter at DC_NY Jets. You can find me on YouTube at Green Bean Jets Fan. Just follow the links, and you'll see a page with all of my content, and that's where my Project Prospect podcast is put out of as well. You can also catch me on Sunday nights. I am a co-host on Jets Chaos show on YouTube, Sunday nights, 9 p.m. We're usually chopping it up. Again, this is a little bit of a lull season, so things get quiet. But as we get into camp, as we get into the summer, definitely during the season, and definitely in the off season, we're usually rocking over there. So, yeah, man.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks so much. I'm going to put all the links to that stuff in the description below. I don't have enough YouTube street cred to put a literal link in there. It won't let me. So I'll write the word dot in case. I did it for Stony too.
Gotcha.
But everything's down there in the description for you guys. I highly recommend checking out all of his stuff. And especially with Green Bean. Green Bean's a really good dude too. Really smart guy. Really in touch with Jet stuff. And just a good host in general.
Yeah.
So absolutely, yeah. Check out Dom's stuff and you'll see more of him in the future. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.